There are a lot of things to consider whenever moving to a new city, and Crestview, Florida is no different. So in today's video, we want to go over the top 10 mistakes that we see people make when buying a house here in Crestview. Let's get into it.
We're going to give you these 10 top mistakes. These aren't in any actual order. These are just the top 10 mistakes that we seem to see people making the most frequently. So one of the top mistakes, we're going to go with the first one, is going to be not doing enough research on the area. So a lot of times folks will be like, oh my gosh, well, my friend lives in Crestview, and so I'm going to move to Crestview, or I'm working at Eglin, so I'm going to move to Crestview, and that's it. We just choose a location. But there are so many more, variables that come into play whenever you're considering a place to relocate, especially if you have a family.
Luckily, if you're watching this video, most likely you are not in this category of doing enough research, because it sounds like you're doing your research right now.
Some of the things that you're going to want to research before moving to any area is going to be, your cost of living, activities, what's the healthcare situation, where are the emergency rooms, things of that nature. And then, how much are the properties, what kind of size lot can you get, what's it close to, what's the traffic going to be like for your commute, both for you and potentially your spouse, because maybe you got a job on Eglin, but maybe your spouse is going to be doing something else in a different location. What are those drives going to be like? And of course, if you're like us and you really like to get out on the water, what's your drive time going to be like getting to the beach, especially during those peak seasons, or just getting out on the bay if you want to rent a boat, get out to Crab Island, whatever it is. We really want to know all of these things. And thankfully, we do videos on pretty much all of this. So you're going to have all of that information as long as you just, search Crestview in our search bar and various other titles depending on what exactly you're looking for.
Which is a great segue. If you haven't already, go ahead and hit that subscribe button and ding that little bell so that you'll be notified every single time we do a new video.
I'm AJ, by the way, and this is
Andrew.
And we're local real estate professionals right here on the Emerald Coast and can absolutely help you determine which area is going to suit you and potentially your family the best.
Now, mistake number 2 we want to talk about is not getting pre-approved for a mortgage if you are moving down here and purchasing. Now, obviously, if you're renting, this is kind of a non-factor for you. Just keep in mind you are going to need some things for renting as well. But we do see a lot of folks come down here and they have no intention of getting pre-approved until they find the right house. And unfortunately, in our market, especially with the way it's been the last several years, that is going to put you at a massive disadvantage. And most real estate agents, us included, are not going to go out and spend our time with you if we don't know that you can actually purchase. And that's not to be mean. That is just to protect everybody's time, including mine, yours, or ours, yours, and of course, the sellers.
One of the reasons that we do this is kind of to prevent heartache, and from, multiple standpoints. If you are looking at a property and you decide that you want to put in an offer on it, you have to accompany that offer with a pre-approval. Otherwise, a seller is not going to take that property off the market. So they're going to continue showing it, and they're going to go ahead with an offer that actually has a pre-approval accompanying it. So if it takes you a couple of days, because maybe you're down here for a weekend, which is something that we see commonly, you're down here and you're like, I'm going to go look at some houses. If I see one that I like, then I'll reach out to my preferred lender and then I'll get the pre-approval. Well, if they don't reach out to you within an hour or so on a Saturday or on a Sunday, maybe they're at church, who knows what, and there are multiple other offers on the table already, you just lost. 100% you just lost, and 100% preventable. The other thing is pre-approvals help us to know exactly where we're at. It's kind of like knowing what your credit score is. It's important to know just in case. So you want to set yourself up for success and not for failure, because you don't know, maybe somebody stole your identity and it hasn't caught up yet and you have no idea and they're just racking up debt in your name. Yeah, that's not a likely story, but it has happened and we've seen it ourselves here. So getting that pre-approval early on will just let you know that all your ducks are in a row and you're ready to pull the trigger on your next property.
And our suggestion is, of course, to generally go local with your lender, depending on the type of loan that you're doing and, the type of property that you're going after. You can always give us a call and we can kind of walk you through that process and steer you in the right direction of where or who you should be discussing this with. There are lots of national chain lenders and mortgage brokers and things that can help you, but we are in a very particular state that has very particular rules, and not all lenders can close on properties in our area. This happens way more than most people think about, especially if you're buying a condo.
The third thing that we're going to talk about is overlooking important factors. Now, I know it's really easy to get excited over a property. You go and someone's, remodeled it, or it's a brand new build and it just looks nice, smells nice, feels nice. You stand in it and you're like, I could totally cook an amazing dinner in this kitchen if I didn't have to clean up afterwards. But what you really want to be looking at outside of that is, how does the lot lie? Is it on, a kind of uneven lot where the water's going to flow into the house from the backyard, or from the 2 yards next to it, where they built up on their lots and now you've got a sort of basin there where the water's all going to flow into your property if we get a lot of rains. Obviously, Crestview is the highest elevation in our area, so flooding from the bottom up isn't so much of an issue, but standing water when it comes from top down, that is absolutely a thing no matter where you are. So these are some of the key factors that we talk about looking at prior to purchasing. Also, zoning. A lot of folks want to come down here and build like a tiny home or a mother-in-law suite, or just want to do something creative with their property. It's really good to know, is the city, for one, going to let you do what you want to do? And also, is the HOA going to allow you to do what you want to do? So a lot of important things that we should absolutely be looking into before making an offer on a property.
Now, looking at this from a more granular level, some of the other factors that a lot of people overlook is whenever they're actually doing the home shopping portion itself. We do see this with other agencies all the time where, they're letting their buyer get really excited and they put in an offer and they just kind of throw their offer to the wind. They're not looking over all the details to make sure that they're getting a safe house. They're getting everything that they need to make sure that it fits with exactly what they like, that they're getting the repairs that they want, that they're getting the closing date that they want. This is particularly important whenever there are multiple offers in place. A lot of times we kind of throw everything to the wind and we're like, just give me the house, just give me the house. So some of the ways to avoid some of this stuff is obviously making sure you're doing a solid buyer consultation with your real estate professional. If it's us, we do that automatically. That is part of our process. But if you are working with somebody else, just make sure you're sitting down. This isn't a phone call. This isn't a 5-minute text message back and forth or anything like that. This is an actual in-person or on Zoom conversation. You can really dive deep into the type of property that you're looking for, so that when you do go home shopping, your agent can make sure that everything is aligned and that you're getting the terms and conditions that are suitable to you.
Something that I always tell my clients is, just because you win the bid doesn't mean you're going to feel like a winner when you get that mortgage payment. So it's important to only negotiate to the point that you are comfortable with for that property, because you could feel comfortable with a certain mortgage payment for one property and not feel that same level of comfort for a different one. So it's very important to only negotiate to your comfort level. If it's not the one, then it's not the one. It's going to happen the way it's meant to be. So we always try to prevent any, remorse purchases. And this leads us into our fourth mistake that we're going to go over, and that's not looking at the actual cost of home ownership. Yeah. So there are a lot of things to consider whenever you're looking at what is that mortgage actually going to be. A lot of folks, they want to say, AJ, I want to look at properties up to this amount. And I always come back with, hang on, what do you want your monthly mortgage to be? Because those two numbers might not add up. You might have, a big number in your head and then realize that the mortgage payment is going to be something different than what you were anticipating. And maybe we need to take that mortgage number down a little bit, because with interest rates and insurance, all of these numbers, they're going to change what that monthly payment looks like. And that's the one that you're really going to feel.
And depending on the type of property that you buy, there are extra expenses that might not be in there whenever you're doing your initial research. A lot of times when we're doing our research for a new property to figure out where our budget is, we just put it into a calculator and it sounds like $300,000 is a good number for us, or $500,000, or whatever the number is. But then you start adding in, like AJ said, taxes and insurance, which can fluctuate massively, especially if you're in an area with a flood zone, which would be uncommon in Crestview. There are a couple of super tiny pockets though, but they're generally around lakes. So you should be good there. But HOA fees, for instance, can definitely put that payment a little bit above your comfort level if you were already kind of maxed out when you were searching.
So speaking of flood zones, this actually leads us into our fifth top mistake, and that's not knowing about natural disasters in our area.
Yeah, for anybody that's been following us or watching us for any extended period of time, thank you, by the way, for returning subscribers. And if you are here for the very first time, we want to thank you as well. But natural disasters are a real thing. We are in Florida. You guys have probably heard on the news and the Weather Channel that a occasionally we get hit with a small gust of wind called a tornado. Or, a hurricane. I don't even know the name of it. Hurricanes are real. They exist. They are a big deal. 90% of the time, it's nothing. In fact, I would say like 99.2% of time, it's not that big of a factor. It's hitting a different part of Florida. Maybe it's just not that extensive of a storm. There's a lot of different things there, but it is something to consider. And with hurricanes come our dreaded friend, the flood. Now, again, in Crestview, you are high and dry. It is the highest elevation in the entire state, so it's very unlikely that you're going to get flood from standing water. But as AJ said, if a tree comes through your front window and then rain follows suit, there will be flood damage. So we just want to take note of these things and just know that this is a possibility, so that when you are home searching, you can do things like make sure you have shutters on there if that's important to you, to make sure that you're flood protected, that your roof is solid, that the components of your home aren't going to fly away with a small gust of wind, because that's never a good day.
I know it sounds scary, and sometimes they are, but the majority of the time, like Andrew said, they're really not. And we are very blessed in our area. We live in paradise, so yeah, there's got to be some kind of balance. So we get hurricanes, but out of all the different types of natural disasters, I feel like I will take hurricanes over tornadoes or tsunamis or earthquakes any day of the week, because something that we get that is not the same as those others is we get all kinds of lead up time. Usually we know like a week in advance, hey, this is coming. That gives you a whole week to plan a vacation somewhere else. That's how I look at it. I'm like, look, I have insurance for a reason. Lock up the house, close up those shutters. Also, highly recommend those shutters that are like not a xylophone, what's it called? An accordion. I always want to say xylophone for some reason, but it's an accordion shape, and you just lock them up. Awesome if you have a family and maybe you're like a deploying husband that leaves the wife behind with the children and she's got to lock up the house.
Or deploying wife leaving a husband behind.
But I feel like the husband's going to have it easier with locking everything up. With a wife, we tend to be a little bit smaller, a little bit shorter, can't reach things as well,
Not everybody's that short, AJ.
I know. It's just like, I hate you. But, these things are amazing. They cost a little bit extra, but the peace of mind that you get being able to lock these up and just go is so amazing. And you don't have to worry about, storing these boards somewhere and then nailing them up. But those are an option. If maybe the budget for these accordion style ones aren't for you, there are definitely other options for boarding up your property. So don't worry if you haven't, planned a budget for those, or the house that you're purchasing doesn't already have them on there. There are multiple other ways to secure your property before going on a little vacation and then coming back once the power has been restored.
All right, let's go ahead and blow past all that. So mistake number 6 is choosing a home that is the wrong size. This is very common with first-time home buyers. A lot of first-time home buyers don't maybe understand how big a house is going to be, and they see a number and they're like, cool, 3,000 square feet seems great for a single guy. And yeah, that sounds good to me, right? So definitely trying to make sure that you are pairing the house with what you want it for. You don't necessarily want to, maybe you do, but most people don't want to be in a 3,000 square foot home as a single gentleman with no roommates or anything. And then vice versa. A family of 8 doesn't necessarily want to be in a 3-bed, 2-bath ranch style home, right? So you definitely want to try to pair the home size with what your needs are.
And we see this all the time, too, with folks that are coming into the area wanting to purchase an investment property. They think, oh, well, I just want to buy something that's going to cash flow, and that's it. 1 bed, 1 bath, maybe even a studio. That's cool, whatever. I just want to, start my investment portfolio. But then don't realize they might actually want to use it themselves, and then come to find out that it really doesn't suit their needs. And they probably could have gotten something comparable, and, maybe slightly different location or, somewhere else. But the point is and that's also the point of our buyer's consultation, is we really get down to the root of what it is that you need and what you're going to need in the near future. So we're not just planning for the right now, but also maybe a year or 2 in advance, whether it's an investment property that you're also going to want to visit and utilize, or if it's going to be your first property and maybe you want to flip it into a rental later on and continue to make money off of it, build that rental empire.
What's funny on this is on the opposite spectrum of that, just as often as we see that happen with condos or with vacation rentals in general when somebody's coming to buy an investment. We also see just as often somebody go, oh, well, I absolutely need a 3-bedroom condo because it's me and my husband and one kid, and I want to have the option to have friends over, what have you. And they're very stuck on that, and it ends up limiting the amount of options that they had, whereas they could have found, let's say, a 2-bedroom with a bunk room, or just a 2-bedroom in general would probably have suited most of their needs, because in reality, not as many people are going to come and visit them, but they don't know that for 2 more years when nobody, really takes them up on these little vacation offers or whatever. So point is, don't get too stuck in it, particularly if you're buying an investment property. You don't want to, pigeonhole yourself into a corner. That's never fun.
The next mistake that we're going to go over is something that we don't really see on our team, but it is, yes, mistake number 7, and it's failing to inspect a property.
Good. That's a good one.
Yeah. Everyone on our team has been trained to almost shove it down a buyer's throat, get the property inspected. Unless you're coming down here yourself to look at the property and you build, renovate, inspect properties on your own, we absolutely highly recommend that this not be the area that you skimp on. You absolutely want to inspect a property, whether it is a new build or a resale, condo, whatever it is, because you never know what could be going on beyond the surface. And even if you know that you want the property, maybe you're going to do some renovations, it's still important to know what's going on behind the scenes so that you can accurately predict how much money it's going to cost you to do those renovations.
And I know there's at least one person out there watching this right now that said, did she really say get an inspection on a new build? Let me tell you a little story. So in Crestview, we sold a property that our client did get an inspection on a brand new build, brand new neighborhood. Literally the whole place is being built from the ground up. They get a home inspection, find out the roof wasn't put on properly and that the nail spacing is too wide. So it needs so many nails per square foot on the roof. That is a building code. They found out that that was not done through this home inspection. They've ripped the roof off, put a new roof on. They ended up having to do it for 8 others in the neighborhood because they had hired a new contracting service to do the roof. So this one home inspection saved them probably a plethora of problems down the road, or worse, when a hurricane came and that roof right off, it probably saved them from that pain. Now, would that have happened? Probably not, let's be honest. But you just don't know. The building codes are there for a reason. Now moving on to mistake number 8, and that is not working with an experienced real estate professional.
Now, while we're talking about experienced real estate professionals, let's go ahead and have all of our contact information put up on the screen for you guys. So if you need to get in contact with an experienced agent, you're able to do so pretty quickly. Give us a call, text, email, whatever your preferred method of communication is. We've been getting lots and lots of communications from you guys, and we absolutely love it. I mean, really, every time we talk to you guys, it's like we're talking to friends, essentially. So please give us a call, whether you have questions about coming to the area, renting, purchasing, whatever it is. We absolutely love hearing from you guys. Now, the pros of working with us or another experienced agent is things like we just mentioned, making sure that you get an inspection on a new build, where someone might not have thought of that. There's also, various contractual nuances that other agents might not know about, like a financing contingency, which we were just talking about this earlier today with a newer agent, and how we've seen on some other contracts where the actual number of days for the financing contingency wasn't incorporated. And if you're new to purchasing, this is going to go right over your head. But the important thing to note is that it won't go over ours. So your money is always protected when you're working with an experienced agent, whether it comes to knowing about the area, knowing about contracts, knowing about laws, HOAs, what's upcoming, and all the other various things that go into real estate.
And while we're on the subject, we are 100% full service, so we will do absolutely everything in the world we can for you, short of, applying for the mortgage and paying for the mortgage and stuff like that. So we'll set up your insurance, your inspections, all of that great stuff. Now, moving on to our second to last mistake, mistake number 9, for those of you that are counting, is making a hasty purchase decision. We see this a lot. In fact, sometimes we see it with our own people, but that's what we're here for. We try to slow you down a little bit. We want to make sure that we're making a well-educated, informed decision. We've got all the data in front of us. This way, when we go to find the right property, we're ready to go. I know you saw something on Zillow. I know you saw this amazing house and you're calling us about it, and that's why. And you're not pre-approved and you're not ready to go and you don't know if it's the right city. We understand that. and we understand you're excited, but we need to, that's part of our job, is to help scale you back a little bit, because we don't want you to call us 6 months after purchasing this home and going, yeah, this wasn't the right city for me. This wasn't the right house for me. I shouldn't have bought a condo. Whatever the mistake might be, most of the time it just happens when we're excited and we're making an emotional decision without attaching any, logical decision-making process to it.
And we see this a lot of times when folks reach out to us. They're like, I'm so excited I found this property, or, some kind of emotional event happened and they're like, I need to sell right now. And this is what I'm looking for. And I just need to sell. And I have someone right now, actually, that's very dear to me, that keeps telling me that she wants to sell her house. And I keep telling her, no, you don't. So yes, I'm literally talking myself out of a job, because that is what is in the best interest of my client. And that's something that we are here for, is to always represent your best interest. Whether or not that's in our best interest, our job is to represent your best interest. And sometimes, a lot of times, that involves talking you off of an emotional ledge, whether it's prior to purchasing, prior to selling, or even once we're under contract. Because once we get into negotiations, things can get a little heated sometimes. Everyone's like, well, I did this, so I think they should do this. And we have to all come together and realize that we're all in a very large transaction. We're looking at hundreds of thousands of dollars on either side of this, sometimes more. And it's important to really look at the entire picture and come to an agreement from, a mathematical and financial standpoint, as opposed to an emotional one. And speaking of, moving too quickly, our number 10 mistake is not factoring in resale value.
Oh, this is a very common one, but this one actually doesn't hurt you near as much as some of the other ones, luckily. But buying the big house on the block, buying the property that's already maxed out on price, they're definitely way too aggressive. You're paying above appraised value for it. I really, 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 really dislike it. I know that there are times where that makes sense. I've got one going on right now. It's a condo. It's a vacation condo. The numbers are there. Like, from a numbers standpoint, it's worth X dollars. Let's call it 250,000. It's just a random number I'm throwing out. But the comps, the comparable properties in this area, show that it should be worth about 210,000. Even though it's outperforming from a financial standpoint, the state's not going to see it that way when they're doing an appraisal. So I explain that to my clients. We walk through that process. They still want it. They pay the 250. We get all the way to the appraised value right at the end, and it appraised for 210,000, just as I told them. And then now they have to come to the table with $40,000 cash above and beyond the down payment that they're already doing, and their inspections and appraisals and everything else they've paid for, in order to secure this home, and the seller's not coming off the price. Now we're in a little bit of a dilemma, and it's one that's not going to be fun, because even if they do purchase it, they are going an uphill battle. If they need to sell that down the road, it's probably going to be a couple of years, unless we have some banger years like we did during COVID, right? They're going to have several years before they can sell that and get out from under it.
The opposite side of that coin is considering, maybe you're purchasing something that needs a little bit of work, or maybe it's the ugly house in the neighborhood and you're looking at it and you're like, I don't know, this house is kind of ugly. The floor plan is really great, but paint and flooring go a long way. You can increase equity and value in a property very quickly by just trading out the paint, the smell, and the flooring, And then once we get into higher dollar amounts, then we're talking about, kitchen, bathroom upgrades. But floor plans are very hard to change. So if you get a very good floor plan in a very good area, your resale value is going to be there in almost every scenario. And this leaves you open for purchasing more properties if you want to, increase your investment portfolio where real estate is concerned, or allow you to use that equity to trade up and purchase a property that is maybe your dream home, or just get out of Dodge. Maybe you want to go do the van life thing. So you sell your house and use all of that equity to purchase a really beautiful RV and just travel the States.
If you guys have made it this far, clearly you got at least a little bit of value out of this, unless this is on autoplay in the background. So if you don't mind, please take just a second for me. Hit that like button. It helps us get the word out to other people, your neighbors, future neighbors, maybe. So go ahead and hit that like button. We'd really appreciate it. And we just want to thank you guys for watching. And I guess we'll see you next time.
Bye, y'all.